Sometimes the loudest message isn't spoken, it's the quiet you leave behind. The moment you stop explaining, the air shifts. There's a different kind of tension when silence enters the room, not the kind that screams, but the kind that forces truth to rise. When you pull back, when you decide not to text, not to call, not to argue, that's when your absence starts to talk for you. It doesn't need punctuation. It doesn't need defense. It just exists. And the funny thing is, it speaks louder than any paragraph you could have sent. At first, she won't know what it means. She'll scroll through your last message looking for a clue. She'll wonder if you're hurt, if you're playing games, if you've found someone else. But none of that matters. What matters is, for the first time, she feels the space you used to fill. That silence used to be occupied by your reassurance, your presence, your voice. Now it's just her thoughts echoing back at her. You see, silence has gravity. It pulls awareness toward it. When you stop speaking, everything you've ever said becomes heavier. Every word you've ever given suddenly has weight because you're no longer handing them out. And when she realizes that your energy is no longer available on demand, confusion turns into curiosity. Curiosity turns into tension. Tension turns into reflection. This is where most men fail. They break the silence too early. They feel the discomfort, the uncertainty, the ache, and they reach for the phone. But that ache is the birth of power. That discomfort is the separation between who you were and who you're becoming. When you hold the silence, you reclaim your energy. You stop chasing understanding and you start embodying it. Because silence doesn't mean you don't care. It means you've finally stopped trying to convince someone of your worth. It's choosing calm over chaos. It's knowing that your time, your attention, your voice, those are privileges, not guarantees. And when you withhold them, you're not punishing her. You're protecting your peace. You're reminding yourself that your energy was never meant to be begged for. Every man reaches a point where he realizes words no longer work. That's when silence becomes sacred. It becomes the filter between emotion and wisdom. It separates reaction from response. It transforms your presence from something expected to something respected. Because when you stop talking, you force the world, and her, to listen differently. She might call you cold. She might say you've changed. But in truth, you've just matured past noise. You've learned that strength isn't in arguing, it's in awareness. And once you taste that peace, you'll never chase validation again. You'll realize the most powerful thing a man can ever say is nothing at all. The moment you stop reacting, the rules change. She has relied on patterns, a predictable reply, a fast apology, a rush of attention. Those patterns are tools. They become a map for how to steer you. Remove the map and the steering falters. When you withdraw, the familiar levers vanish. She learns that her usual moves no longer produce the expected result. Panic at first, then strategies. She tests boundaries. She sends a message with a casual tone. She posts something meant to catch your eye. She calls without a real reason. Each attempt is an experiment. Each experiment measures whether you remain available. Availability is influence. People adapt to the bandwidth you offer. If you are always on call emotionally, you become easy to shape. If you limit access, your presence gains value. That scarcity forces recalibration. She must decide how much of herself to invest when the guarantee is gone. This is the point where her confidence shakes. Control was comfortable. It felt safe to know how you would respond. Without that certainty, old tactics lose power. She tries louder. She tries softer. She manipulates tone, timing, and attention. She flips from charm to confrontation. She bargains and bluffs. Those are not signs of manipulation alone. They are attempts to restore a rhythm that once centered her. You will feel pressure. You will see behavior designed to provoke. Don't confuse provocation for truth. Keep your frame. Let the test pass over you. Respond with stillness. Not as a weapon but as a boundary. Boundaries are statements about who you are, not punishments meant to break someone down. When you hold your line, you teach without words. Some men break. They call, they explain, they negotiate peace. That resets the cycle. The familiar pattern breathes again. You become accessible and the leverage you held evaporates. Repeating the old script keeps chaos on the stage. To interrupt the pattern requires the willingness to bear discomfort for long-term integrity. Power in silence is not cruelty. It is self-governance. It is refusing to be shuffled by someone else's need for control. The quieter you remain under pressure, the clearer your priorities become. Your choices stop being reactive. They become intentional. That shift is contagious. People start to mirror the restraint they encounter. Calm begets calm. Watch how quickly priorities rearrange when you stop being a resource on demand. Her conversations change tone. The trivial things fall away. The things that mattered, respect, consistency, quiet reliability, regain prominence. She begins to weigh whether the bargain she offered was fair. That calculation is rarely immediate. It happens in small motions. A message sent at a different hour, a slower reply, less performative affection. Those micro-changes are evidence that influence is migrating. You do not need to coerce understanding. Influence grows when you model the behavior you value. By limiting availability, you invite honesty. By refusing to be manipulated, you invite maturity. That is how influence replaces control. And when influence takes root, it does not roar. It persists, steady and sure. Words can be shields. They can distort as often as they reveal. When conversation stops, those shields fall away. Without the armor of explanation, what remains is raw movement. Gestures, silences, small habits that used to be background noise. She no longer has a script to hide behind. Conversations used to be a safe loop. Deflect, distract, repeat. Remove the loop and the performance falters. She begins to witness the patterns she built to avoid responsibility. This is when honesty sneaks in disguised as discomfort. She notices the gap between what she says and what she does. Minor contradictions stand out like cracks. Excuses that once sounded reasonable reveal the edges of avoidance. Memory sharpens when there is no dialogue to soften the view. The mirror isn't instantaneous. It creeps up between errands and late nights. It arrives in quiet moments when the rush slows and there is room to replay the past. She hears her own voice with less defense. She watches her reactions without a partner to bounce them off. That internal witness is revealing. Regret is subtle at first. It comes as a pause before a reply, a draft text never sent, a late-night scroll that stops at your photo. Those hesitations compound. Over weeks they reshape the narrative she tells herself about who she was in the story you shared. Clarity follows pattern recognition. The things she minimized become visible. The way she dismissed your steadiness. The nights she pushed for drama. The times she mistook availability for depth. Without noise, the truth is less negotiable. It doesn't require debate. It requires admission. You will not see public confessions. This is private work. She does not need an audience to process mistakes. Often change is expressed through different choices rather than words. She stops inviting conflict. She opts out of petty battles. She chooses simpler rhythms. The tone softens because awareness has replaced the compulsion to react. Don't mistake silence for absence of feeling. She feels deeply. The quiet forces her to sit with those feelings until they have meaning. Feeling without distraction is educational. It teaches remorse, responsibility, restraint. This quiet curriculum rewires future decisions. She starts setting boundaries where she once pushed yours. She may seek steadier company. She measures intensity against consistency. She stops equating drama with passion. The lesson is practical. Calm proves itself over time. When she finally speaks differently, you'll notice steadier messages, fewer attempts to provoke, more curiosity about who you are rather than demands for attention. Language shifts from accusation to inquiry. That shift is not theatrical, it's maturity. In time, the mirror becomes less punishing. It becomes a tool. She uses it to avoid repeating the mistakes you endured. That does not erase the past, but it changes the future. The echo of your restraint lives in the choices she makes afterward. This chapter isn't about victory or loss. It's about clarity earned through quiet observation. While the work happens inside, its outcomes alter how two people move forward with more honesty than before in growth. You are not being cruel when you choose silence. You are practicing restraint. There's a discipline in choosing not to react, a decision to hold your center when storms demand your voice. That discipline looks like calm and calm reads like control. Silence here is not an absence of feeling. It's an expression of value. It says, my attention has limits. My time is finite. My worth isn't negotiable. You stop explaining because you refuse to finance someone else's inconsistency with your attention. When you refuse the urge to clarify every misunderstanding, you make room for integrity. Integrity is quieter than rhetoric. It's shown through steady habits, not dramatic speeches. People notice what you do more than what you say. Your actions become the language you speak. This is where boundaries become visible. Boundaries aren't walls meant to punish. They're frames that protect what matters. They keep your energy focused on people who treat it as a gift, not a guarantee. When you hold a boundary, you show where your line is drawn without needing to argue for respect. Silence sharpens judgment. The fewer impulsive words you give away, the more precise your choices become. You see who returns with generosity and who expects your patience as an entitlement. That vision saves you from wasting time on patterns that never change. Calmness creates consequence. Not through revenge but through clarity. Your peace becomes a standard. People adjust to what you require, or they reveal themselves by leaving. Both outcomes serve you. Either you attract consistency or you expose mismatches before they cost you more. This quiet strength changes your presence. You stand differently. Your posture holds less tension. Your speech, when it surfaces, lands with weight because it's selected, not scattered. That selection turns ordinary words into commands. People lean in when you speak. Your voice is earned. Silence also reorients desire. Attention given freely is cheap. The man who gives less gains interest because his attention signals scarcity and selectiveness. Not manipulation, clarity of value. Desire follows what is held with care. Holding quiet is an act of faith in yourself. It trusts that your life will not collapse because you stop explaining. It accepts discomfort today for a steadier tomorrow. You will get tested. People will call your silence indifference. They will accuse you of avoiding issues. That's predictable. Resist the pull to justify your posture. Explanation often lights fires that were dying. Let time do its work. If someone truly values you, they will ask the right questions. If not, they will leave. Finally, silence is a practice, not a strategy. A habit you cultivate to preserve clarity. When cultivated, it sharpens your life, relationships, work, decisions. It teaches you to invest energy where it compounds, not where it evaporates. When silence is honest, it builds. It doesn't destroy for the sake of destruction. It curates space for better things to grow. That's how a man becomes steadier, truer, unshakable. He becomes someone others trust because his quiet is the sign of a man present. Period. She will try to stitch the silence with noise at first. Small actions become loud pleas. A casual photo meant to catch your eye. An inside joke posted at the right hour. An accidental mention of your name. These are rehearsed moves, practiced like a script to pull you back into rhythm. When those attempts fail, performance fades. The craving for instant reaction loses its power. What remains is memory, not momentum. Memory lands differently when it is not cushioned by conversation. She begins to catalog the ordinary things she once took for granted. Do I reply on a bad day? A calm in the middle of chaos. The way you anchored arguments with patience, not panic. Those small certainties settle into significance. They start to feel rare. Rarity breeds regret. Her comparisons tilt. She watches other people perform the same roles and notices the difference. Imitation feels shallow. She senses a depth she can't manufacture. The absence of your voice reveals the structure your presence used to provide. That structure taught her how to behave. Without it, she stumbles into old habits again until memory corrects her. Remorse quiets bravado. She stops testing people to prove a point. She values steadiness over spectacle. Her standards shift from drama to dignity. She seeks partners who reflect composure rather than chaos. That search is clumsy at first. She will make mistakes. She will confuse novelty for meaning. Time weeds out confusion. Repeated encounters with emptiness teach better choices. Her texts shorten. Her laughter loses performative edges. She practices silence of her own, not to punish but to reconstruct herself. This rebuilding is private and awkward and necessary. It is not announced. It is practiced in subtle decisions. She cancels plans that feel like rehearsals. She keeps promises to herself. She stops apologizing for needing space. Those small actions accumulate into a different map. Eventually, when she turns inward instead of outward, appreciation grows. It is not theatrical gratitude. It is sober recognition. She remembers the simple rituals you offered without thinking. A steady presence during hard nights. A neutral tone that never escalated. An honesty that never demanded applause. Those things begin to look like safety. Safety becomes desirable. That desire no longer masks itself as drama. She becomes more selective. She tests for consistency before she invests again. She learns to value the man who shows up over the one who performs. And while she may not confess this to you, her choices will reflect it. She will choose differently next time. She will sit with discomfort rather than manufacture distraction. She will prefer calm company over constant proof. This is the subtle aftermath of your withdrawal. It rewrites what she wants without fanfare. It shifts her compass toward people who bring balance. Your absence taught her how to seek better. That lesson endures longer than any argument ever could. In its place, she plants new boundaries, chooses quieter loyalties, holds her heart with care, and measures desire by steadiness, quietly refusing to settle for anything less. Ever again. Silence isn't just what you give, it's what you start to hear inside yourself. When the noise fades, your own voice gets louder. You begin to notice what you were tolerating, where you were shrinking, what felt heavy but disguised itself as love. You start to understand how often you traded peace for closeness. The space that once felt empty becomes a mirror reflecting back every compromise you made in the name of connection. You learn patience again, not the kind that waits for someone but the kind that rebuilds the self. The hours that used to be filled with arguments and explanations turn into quiet routines. You move differently. You think clearer. You realize most of what you called losing her was really rediscovering you. This phase is uncomfortable. It's not calm at first. Stillness reveals everything you tried to distract yourself from. Old wounds surface. Doubts whisper. Your mind runs through what is. But when you stop running from the silence, it becomes therapy. Every breath feels cleaner. Every thought gains shape. You begin to see how much of your energy was spent maintaining peace with people who thrived on chaos. Clarity replaces obsession. Instead of asking, "Why did she leave?" you start asking, "Why did I stay so long?" That shift is liberation. You see patterns that once controlled you. You catch yourself before explaining to people who never listen. You stop chasing closure and start creating it internally. Silence teaches separation between emotion and reaction. You can feel pain without letting it command your behavior. You can miss someone and still not reach out. That's growth, when longing no longer equals weakness. Every moment you stay composed strengthens your foundation. You begin to carry yourself differently. People notice before you even speak. Energy becomes currency. You stop giving it away freely. You invest it into things that multiply: health, purpose, solitude, improvement. You start reading again, training again, thinking long-term again. Every small act of discipline repairs confidence. Every quiet victory rebuilds power. Eventually, you reach a level of peace that noise can't touch. You no longer crave attention. You crave alignment. You become deliberate with words, with time, with emotion. The world slows down around you. You walk into rooms without trying to prove anything. That's when you realize silence was never about ignoring her. It was about hearing yourself clearly for the first time. You become grounded. Emotion no longer dictates your direction. Detachment becomes natural, not forced. People feel it. They sense the difference between silence born from ego and silence born from strength. Yours radiates calm. It doesn't need defense. In this quiet, you rediscover command. You no longer wait for validation to feel secure. You create meaning instead of chasing it. That's the true lesson of withdrawal. Silence isn't an ending, it's a beginning. It refines your energy until only truth remains. And once you've tasted that peace, you'll never beg for noise again. The silence leaves a resonance that lasts longer than any argument. Small moments keep echoing. A steady look in a crowded room, a calm response that didn't escalate, a promise kept when no one was watching. Those fragments replay in quiet hours and rearrange memory. She will carry fragments of you like bookmarks. They surface at odd times, during a slow commute, while folding laundry, when a song pauses. The recollection is not dramatic. It's a soft ache that reminds her of reliability. Reliability is rarer than passion, and rarity becomes a weight she cannot ignore. You won't always witness the aftermath. Change is most honest when it happens out of sight. She may never announce that she learned restraint or that she now compares others to the standard you set. Still, her choices will shift. The way she grants trust will become more cautious. The tempo of her affection will slow. She will demand less spectacle and more steadiness. Sometimes the echo hums as regret. Other times it turns into taste. She begins to scout for partners who choose presence over performance. The bar she sets raises. Simple consistency becomes a test. That test weeds out flash and rewards care. Your quiet taught her value without a lecture. Not every response is immediate. The long echo works like weather. It alters mood and direction gradually. Days bend toward different priorities. Conversations become shorter and clearer. She stops confusing heat for depth. She stops mistaking reaction for commitment. Tiny recalibrations add up into a new emotional architecture. You'll see the ripple elsewhere. Friends and colleagues treat you with steadier regard. Your silence broadcasts competence, and competence attracts responsibility. Projects move forward with less noise. Decisions feel cleaner. The world around you tightens into a simpler, more honest rhythm. That echo also protects you. Past chaos loses its hold because memory reframes pain as lesson. You no longer relive every slight. Instead, you catalog data and act differently. Your responses get leaner. You invest selectively. Energy stops scattering, it multiplies where it lands. Acknowledgement from her is optional. Many lessons are absorbed privately, never turned into confession. Don't expect public amends. Growth doesn't require applause. The real payoff is in the realignment. 2 lives altered, each more aware, each less likely to repeat the old cycle. If she meets someone who mirrors your steadiness, the echo will amplify, not erase. She will recognize what she needs faster. If she doesn't, the memory still shapes her boundaries and taste. Either result proves the silence did more than silence ever could. In time, the echo runs quieter, but its architecture stays. It scaffolds future choices. It steers how she approaches intimacy and respect. Your restraint becomes a silent syllabus. The long echo is not revenge. It is refinement. It makes both of you more resistant to drama and more receptive to steadiness. In the end, it proves that absence can be constructive, that restraint can educate, and that the most enduring influence is the one that quietly rewrites how people choose truly. The final shift happens when you no longer react at all. Her messages no longer spark adrenaline. Her absence no longer burns. You've outgrown the noise that once controlled you. Detachment becomes your quiet authority. You don't chase, you don't prove, you don't explain. You simply move forward untouched. That calm presence unsettles her more than any confrontation ever could. You used to think control meant getting her back. Now you see control means not needing her at all. It's not pride, it's peace. It's knowing that your value doesn't shrink because someone stopped noticing it. That realization reprograms your instincts. You stop measuring love by attention and start measuring it by alignment. If something disturbs your peace, you walk away. That's not loss. That's evolution. She'll sense it. That stillness around you, it's heavy. She'll feel it in your tone, in your silence, in the way you look through her instead of at her. She'll start wondering when the switch flipped. The man who once tried to convince her now feels unreachable. And that distance will gnaw at her pride. Because she'll realize the same silence she used to punish you is now punishing her. When she sees you happy without her, it won't be jealousy, it'll be disorientation. She'll question her own choices. She'll remember the times you showed up, the patience you gave, the chances she wasted. But it'll be too late to fix it. Because once a man finds peace in solitude, no temporary affection can tempt him back into chaos. The new version of you doesn't chase validation. You move differently. You speak less, but everything you say carries weight. You don't try to prove you've changed, your silence proves it for you. You've become what most men never reach, a man whose emotions serve him, not enslave him. You start noticing how quiet power attracts everything loud energy used to chase. People listen when you talk. Opportunities appear when you stop begging for them. The universe bends toward men who master themselves. You've become magnetic because you're no longer desperate. You've stopped trying to be chosen, now you choose. And she'll feel that shift like a storm she didn't prepare for. The attention she once controlled is gone. The emotional supply she fed on has dried up. You've reclaimed your energy, and that's what she really misses. Not you, but the power she had when you cared too much. This is the point where silence turns into strength, where distance becomes dominance. You've learned that peace isn't found in getting closure, it's found in giving none. Because the man who no longer needs to be understood finally is. She'll wonder if you ever think of her. You do, but not with pain, not with longing. Just quiet clarity. You remember what it taught you. Control is not about her losing you. It's about you never losing yourself again. Subscribe for more at Brainify Guy.